Team E, could you please introduce your participating team members?
Good evening, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Lily Kim, and I will be conducting the opening statement on behalf of the prosecution, the direct examination of Alex Cifuentes, and the cross-examination of Taylor Perkins.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the jury, co-counsel. My name is Eleanor Hunt, and I will be conducting the direct exam of Detective Jordan Markowitz and the cross-exam of Avery Becker.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Abby Amen. I will be performing the direct exam of Kyle Kuzak, the cross-exam of Professor Van Owen, as well as the closing arguments. At this time, may our witnesses introduce themselves?
They may. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Lauren Krause, and I am Alex Cifuentes.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Tate Ham, and I am Detective Jordan Markowitz.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the jury, opposing counsel. My name is Drew Filerman, and today I am Kyle Kuzak.
All right, thank you. And I will ask the defense, Team J, to do the same thing at this time, please.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the jury and opposing counsel. My name is Maddie Malens, and I will be performing the opening statement, the direct examination of Professor Van Owen, and the cross-examination of Detective Markowitz.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Greer Henderson, and I will be performing the direct examination of Taylor Perkins and the cross-examination of Kyle Kuzak.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Kendall Kozlowski. I'll be conducting the direct examination of Avery Becker, the cross-examination of Alex Cifuentes, and giving the closing argument. Permission for our witnesses to introduce themselves?
They may. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Kyla Letko, and today I am Blake Van Owen.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Jack Domich, and I'm Taylor Perkins.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Kate Melman, and I am Avery Becker.
Thank you. All right, at this time then I'm going to swear in all of the team members as well as the gallery and scoring panelists and witnesses. So let me go through this first. So first, for the team members, I'll ask you all to raise your right hands at this time. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? And you may all answer at once.
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
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 Thank you. All right, and now I'm going to specifically swear in the witnesses. So witnesses, if you will raise your right hand. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
Yes.
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 All right, thank you. And any gallery members that I have, including teachers, attorney coaches, family members, or friends, would you please raise your right hands at this time? Do you all promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round? And I don't see anybody on video or answering, but I'll assume any gallery members will abide by that. All right, for scoring panelists, would you please raise your right hand? Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Then at this time, I believe we can get started with the trial. At this time, I'm going to ask if there are any preliminary issues. First, from prosecution, Team E, any preliminary issues we need to address?
Yes, Your Honor. We first would like to ask the judge to publish the stipulated facts to the jury.
Okay. Any objection from Team J?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may do so.
We also ask that any time remaining after direct examination be saved for redirect.
Okay. The court will grant the request.
We would also like to ask for the judge, for the witnesses to view exhibits on their own screens prior to admission.
And any objection to that request from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, that will be allowed as well.
We also ask that co-counsel may automatically screen share exhibits after an exhibit has been admitted into evidence, as to not waste time asking for permissions mid-exam.
Sure, that's fine. And that will go for both teams. Once an exhibit is admitted, if you want co-counsel to screen share it, that's fine.
And we also ask that our time for direct examination be paused should there be technological issues on the witness's end, if they're cutting out or we can't hear them.
Sure, that's fine. And I understand this year the format's a little bit different, right? So it's pretty difficult for everybody. But if there are technical problems, as I understand, as the presiding judge, I have discretion to determine how we should pause, when we should pause, how much time we should give for reconnections, et cetera. So if that happens, you can just motion me at that time to pause the time, and we'll see how long we need to do that if there's any technical issues.
Thank you. And finally, Your Honor, we ask that all these motions be extended to opposing counsel.
Okay, thanks. I will grant that request.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Any preliminary issues on behalf of Team J?
Yes, Your Honor. For now, my co-counsel, Kendall Kozlowski, will be posting all exhibits used in examination except their own examination, in which case I will post all exhibits.
Okay, and so I will allow those exhibits to be posted once they're entered into evidence.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Any other preliminary issues that weren't covered?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Well, then at this time, before we go any further, I believe I need to ask the courtroom monitor if we are clear to begin opening statements, knowing that some of the other courtrooms may have had conflicts. Is there a courtroom monitor connected that can give us the go-ahead? All right, give me just a few moments to see if I can get a go-ahead from the courtroom monitor before we get started, just so we don't get started and then perhaps have to rearrange courtrooms. All right. I believe it's okay, we can get started. So I will turn it over for opening statements. Prosecution, you may go first.
Yes, Your Honor. Before I begin, may I just request that if you can't hear me or if I cut out for any technical issues, that the time stops, please.
Sure, and we'll address that if it happens.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Avery Becker was ousted, outraged, and out of control. You will hear today that Avery was on an undeniable quest for revenge, and on March 6th, 2020, she took her actions too far. She broke into her mock trial coach, Mr. Brackman's home, with the intent to vandalize it just as she vandalized his car before. And when she was surprised to find him at home, she used his own self-defense weapon to murder him. As you will hear from several witnesses today, including Avery herself, Avery had a special talent when it came to mock trial. She was an award-winning actor, playing the role of a lawyer, an outstanding witness, and had the ability to seem completely believable on the stand, the same place where she will sit and speak to you today. Avery's history of acting out proves that she simply could not handle missing out on mock trial. She has lost her self-control, not once, not twice, but 3 times. The first time, Avery's disrespectful behavior got her ousted from the A-team, the place where she was the center of attention. So she encouraged her best friend Taylor to quit the team for her, and Taylor did. The second time, Mr. Brackman gave Avery constructive criticism about her mock trial awards, but Avery became outraged and out of control. She took a permanent marker, she walked out of practice, and she wrote on. She vandalized Mr. Brackman's car. When she left practice, she was still outraged. She even told her mom that she was going to get back at Mr. Brackman. Avery has a temper. Does it sound like she makes rational decisions when she's outraged? That brings us to the murder of Mr. Brackman. So the third and last time when Avery was ousted for good, she was overcome with anger and desperate for revenge. She was out of control and nobody could stop her from her plan. So first today, you will hear from Alex Cifuentes, who will tell you about that plan of Avery's to break into Mr. Brackman's home and show you the text messages that prove it. Then you will hear from Detective Markowitz, who will show you a diagram based off of Avery's cell phone data, the same data that proves Avery was near Mr. Brackman's house at the time of the murder. She will show you ring video footage of the intruder of the same height and build as Avery Becker. Next, you will hear from Mr. Cusack, a crime scene reconstruction investigator for the city of Denver, who concluded that this was a planned burglary gone wrong. Then you will hear from the defense's witnesses. While you listen to Avery, I ask you to listen to her tell you that she was the best on her team, that she won awards, but also that she was angered by Mr. Brackman. Today, Avery will claim she had an alibi. Who will give us that alibi? Taylor Perkins, Avery's very best friend, Taylor, Avery's most loyal friend, Taylor. Not only a conflict of interest, but the alibi doesn't even make sense. You will hear from the defense's expert, Miss Van Owen, a paid witness who criticizes the prosecution's investigation, but only conducted a partial survey of the evidence herself on which she bases all of her conclusions. At the end of this trial, we, the prosecution, will ask you to declare Avery Becker guilty of murder in the first degree and second-degree burglary. Ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that we do not have to prove to you that Avery planned to murder Mr. Brackman. We only have to prove that during a second-degree burglary, she killed him. We must prove to you that Avery is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And the evidence will show you today that Avery had the motive and intent to trash Mr. Brackman's house. And while she was out of control doing it, she killed him. Avery will tell you today that none of it is true. She will do everything in her power today to try and reverse the consequences of what she did when she was ousted, outraged, and out of control. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Opening statement on behalf of the defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. You just heard a theory without evidence. The defense will show you a different picture today, that this case is anything but open and shut, that the police and prosecution failed to consider all leads, collect evidence, interview witnesses, and in fact, incorrectly interpreted evidence. It is your job to decide whether or not the prosecution has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt, a very high standard. If you have even the slightest doubt as to whether Avery Becker could have killed Mackenzie Brackman, then you must acquit. The truth is that Avery did not kill Mackenzie Brackman. She was out all day with her best friend, looking for her lost phone, as any teenager would do. Avery is just a girl, a former student at Colorado High School. She is a friend, a daughter, a classmate. She is not a murderer. The truth, why then is Avery sitting in front of you today? Because she was framed. How? The police failed to properly investigate this crime. Had they done their job, Avery would not be sitting here today. My client will admit that she foolishly wrote on her coach's car, a terrible lapse in judgment. But did she know she had grabbed a permanent marker? Absolutely not. The prosecution built their entire case on a childish transgression. They will have you believe that after vandalizing Mackenzie Brackman's car, Avery planned on vandalizing his house. Why does the prosecution think this? Hard copy printouts of text messages allegedly exchanged between Alex Cifuentes and Avery. However, consider this. The police have never examined, much less laid eyes on Alex or Avery's phone. They have no reliable evidence that this text exchange ever even occurred. Just a cooked up printout of a fictional conversation. The defense's expert witness, Professor Van Owen, will testify that the text messages could have easily been doctored by Alex. She will also establish that the call detail records are inherently unreliable. CDRs cannot determine the actual location of the phone since calls don't necessarily connect to the closest tower. And of course, CDRs cannot tell us the location of a phone's owner who could be somewhere else entirely. The police also failed to gather CDR evidence from the day before the crime for other people connected to this case, or interview other people identified by the police as plausible suspects. For example, Blair Rollins' father went to prison after Mackenzie Brackman lost his court case. Surely watching your father go to jail is more of a motive to kill than being cut from the mock trial team. Moreover, Blair Rollins was absent from the day Mackenzie Brackman was killed. They have left Colorado, and they're the same height and build as Avery. You will also hear from the defendant, Avery and Taylor Perkins. They will both testify that Avery lost her phone the day before the crime and were frantically searching for it on the day Mackenzie Brackman was murdered. This is wholly corroborated by Taylor's consistent texts and calls to Avery's phone as they searched. The police came to the easiest conclusion possible based upon one seriously flawed lead by another suspect and unreliable call records. An open and shut case. However, a teenage girl's life and liberty are on the line. Don't let sloppy police work in a patently superficial investigation ruin this innocent girl's life. Members of the jury, it is your job to listen to all the evidence, especially the lack of evidence presented here today. Once you do, you will find that the prosecution absolutely did not meet their burden of proof. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, then I will turn it over to the prosecution to present your case in chief. And how would you like to proceed?
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Alex Cifuentes to the stand.
All right. So, Mrs. Fuentes, I'm just going to remind you that you are under oath at this time. All right, you may go ahead, counsel. Begin direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Alex Cifuentes, Sifuentes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a senior at Colorado High School and I'm on the mock trial team.
Could you please tell us a little bit about your relationship with Avery Becker?
We were on the same mock trial team and we were good friends.
How did you end up on the mock trial team?
Actually, Avery introduced me to the team.
Let's talk about mock trial. What is mock trial?
Mock trial is a club that simulates a real-life court case with lawyer and witness roles.
How would you describe Avery's role on your mock trial team?
Avery was a super talented lawyer and witness. She could always make up anything on the spot and be believable.
How did you know Mackenzie Brackman?
He was the coach for our mock trial team. I really loved and respected Coach Brackman.
How would you describe Mr. Brackman as a person?
He was a great coach, a great lawyer, and he valued hard work because he always wanted the best for the team.
Based on your perceptions, how would you describe the relationship between Avery and Mr. Brackman?
From what I could tell, Avery always disliked Coach because he tried to push her to prepare more and be on time, but she never did.
What did Mr. Brackman do about that?
He demoted her to the B team.
What was that like?
It was very tense, and then Avery's other best friend, Taylor Perkins, also quit, forcing Coach to let Avery back on the A team.
How did the team react to that?
Everyone was very upset about Avery being let back on the A team, and then even more upset about her awards.
What awards did she win?
She won Best Attorney and Best Closing Argument at the regional tournament.
Why were those awards significant?
Well, Coach tried to tell her that she shouldn't take them as good lawyering because she needed to learn how to properly prepare, but she just got angry and was so out of control.
You say she was out of control. What did she do?
Avery was outraged. When leaving practice, she vandalized Coach's Porsche by writing Worst Attorney Award in permanent marker.
Were you at practice when that happened?
Yes, I saw her leave angrily and grabbed a Sharpie from our paper easel.
Are you sure it was a Sharpie?
We had both Sharpies and dry erase markers in the room, and they're easy to tell apart.
What did Mr. Brackman end up doing about his car?
He didn't even press charges because he was just such a caring coach, but instead, he did kick Avery off the team for good.
Tell us what happened after this incident.
Avery texted me and asked me if I would talk to Coach about letting her back on the A team, so I begged him to.
Why did you do this for her?
We were between regionals and state, and even though I honestly would have gotten a bigger position, I wanted the best for the team, and I wasn't going to let my personal interests get in the way of our team's success.
How did Mr. Brackman respond to your question?
Unfortunately, Coach wouldn't let her back on, so I texted Avery and told her what he said.
Your Honor, may I have permission to ask this witness to pull up a copy of Exhibit 14?
You may.
Could you please pull up a copy of Exhibit 14?
Yes.
Do you recognize this image?
Yes, this is a screenshot of Avery and my text messages after I told her that she wasn't going to be allowed back on the team.
When did this text exchange occur?
The night before the incident, and right before I saw Avery at the Fry Shack.
What did you do about the messages once you were approached about this trial?
Well, after the horrific incident, I got a call from the detective and I told her about the text messages and sent the screenshots of the exact messages after my interview.
Are these an exact copy of the screenshots you sent to the detective?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would now like to offer Exhibit 14 into evidence.
All right, any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Objection hearsay.
Any response, Ms. Kim?
Yes, Your Honor. To address Avery's text messages under Rule 801D2, this is a statement made by a party opponent and is therefore admissible into evidence. And to address Alex's messages, they are not being offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted, but rather to show Alex's reaction to Avery's statements.
All right, Ms. Kozlowski, did you have any further reply?
Yes, Your Honor. As you will hear later tonight, these are not an admission by a party opponent. Avery Becker did not send these text messages.
All right, thank you. At this time,
Your
I
Honor, may I
will allow.
respond?
You may briefly.
The evidentiary weight of the text messages is up for the jury to determine. They are still admissible into evidence, even if they have not been proven authentic by Avery.
All right, thank you. I will allow Exhibit 14 in over objection. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do I have permission from my co-counsel to screen share a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 14?
Yeah.
Could you please read us the third to last gray bubble on the second page, please?
Well, if he's still upset about his car, then he's going to be really upset when he sees what I did to his house.
Is this what Avery texted to you?
Yes.
Did you tell anyone about what she said?
Not immediately. As her friend, I gave her the benefit of the doubt that she wasn't going to make another mistake after Coach's car, so I just told Avery that it wasn't a good idea.
I'd now like to talk a little bit about your last interaction with Avery before this trial. How would you describe your last interaction?
I saw her at the Fry Shack the evening before the murder. We had a great talk about mock trial and the team, and Avery thanked me for talking to Coach. Then she even let me play a game on her phone.
Who else was with you at the Fry Shack?
Taylor Perkins was there as well.
Do you recall someone named Blair Rollins being with you at the Fry Shack that day?
No.
Did Blair participate in mock trial?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Could you tell us who Blair Rollins is?
I went to school with Rollins, but I don't even know if we had a class together. I barely knew who they were.
Okay, now I just have a few more questions for you. We've talked a lot about Avery's role as a lawyer on your mock trial team. Was she always a lawyer?
She was a witness several times over the years, too.
Did you ever see her as a witness?
Yes, I did.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. I don't see how this line of questioning is relevant to who killed Mackenzie Brackman.
All right, thank you. Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. This is most certainly relevant to the defendant's propensity for truthfulness, their capability of manipulating an audience, and their credibility.
All right, any reply, Ms. Kozlowski?
Not at this time.
All right. I am not going to allow that line of questioning. You may move on, Ms. Kim.
Thank you, Your Honor. How did you view Avery's skill level in mock trial based on your perceptions?
Well, she was very talented. She was a good lawyer, and as a witness, she came off entirely sincere and believable. She just had this amazing ability to make things up on the spot and convince you that they were completely true.
Thank you, Alex. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Then at this time, I will turn it over for cross-examination. Ms. Kozlowski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hello, Ms. Cifuentes.
Hi.
Avery told you about mock trial when you were freshmen,
Yeah, she introduced me. We were great friends.
and you worked hard at mock trial, but Avery was just naturally better than you.
We had very different work ethics. Her approach to mock trial was improvisation.
And it upset you that Avery never prepared for practice and just made things up as she went along.
It caused a lot of stress for the team not knowing how Avery was going to perform, so it was upsetting.
In fact, you even asked your coach why he put up with Avery's behavior and lackadaisical attitude.
I mean, Avery was a constant threat to our team, so I did ask him.
So it sounds like you were resentful of Avery.
I just wanted the best for our team, so I wanted all of the participants to prepare as they should.
But that's a yes.
I do think that she was rewarded more than I, even though I worked hard, but we were teammates and we pushed each other to do better, and that's what I was doing.
But Avery never let the team down, did she?
Improvisation can go both ways, and for Avery, it tended to go better, but it easily could have gone worse.
In fact, Avery won awards, such as Best Attorney and Best Closer at regionals.
Mock trial is unfair. The judges only judge what they see, and even though they don't see the preparation, she pulled it off for that competition.
And it really irritated you and the team that she won awards.
We all put so much effort into mock trial that it did bother us.
To use your words, it was a slap in the face when someone who was only average and doesn't work hard wins awards.
She didn't work hard, and that was the truth, so it was.
Especially when those awards are just won based on good looks.
It was luck for her.
And not because of any real talent.
She had a flair for improvisation, and her talent lied in that.
But you didn't believe that Avery was really talented at mock trial.
I mean, she definitely got away with it, but I didn't think she worked hard at all.
And at the practice after regionals, where Avery had just won the Best Attorney Award and Best Closer, Mr. Brackman told Avery that good lawyers prepare.
And it's true, they do.
And good lawyers work hard.
Which is also true.
And Mr. Brackman told Avery that she wasn't a good lawyer.
Well, if good lawyers prepare and work hard, then theoretically Avery wasn't.
And he told her that in front of the whole A-team.
Well, Avery exhibited these aspects very frequently, and this was always a problem, and she never got the hang of it, so he needed to talk to her about that.
And he told her this in front of the A-team with all of her friends and peers watching.
In mock trial, you perform in front of your friends and your teammates, and he said this in front of them.
And Avery was rightfully embarrassed by her coach telling her that she wasn't a good lawyer.
Well, she never worked hard, so what he said was just directly a result of how she performed and what she did to prepare for her for court.
And then Mr. Brackman demoted Avery to the B team.
Yes.
And you thought that she rightfully deserved that.
Yes, she did.
And really that the team would be better off without her.
She caused so much stress to the team that she was better off without her.
And her being demoted would have given you a promotion on the team.
Anyone being demoted could give me a promotion, but it just happened to be her.
And you were excited to have this larger role on the team.
Anyone would be excited to have a bigger role, no matter how they got it.
With Avery gone, it was finally your moment to shine.
I mean, I would have gotten a bigger role, but I fought for her to get back on the team because I cared more about the team than I did about my own personal interest.
So that's a yes.
A bigger role is nice, and Avery getting off the team did give me one, but I fought despite that for Avery to be back on the team.
And you've said that because Avery was kicked off the team, there was a good chance what she did was going to make the team forfeit going to the state competition.
Yes, because you can't just switch out teammates at state.
So you must have been very angry at her after all your hard work.
I put all of my time and effort into mock trial, and it's very important to me, and I just want my teammates.
Ms. Fuentes, a simple yes or no will suffice here.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, so you must have been very angry at Avery after all of her hard work, all of your hard work.
I was upset, yes.
And you saw Avery at the Fry Shack after she was kicked off the team.
We had a wonderful chat, yes.
and she let you play a game on her phone right before going to the restroom and leaving.
We were having such a great talk.
Objection.
Comfortable enough.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the objection.
402. I'm
Can you
objecting
repeat
under
it?
Rule 401 and 402 relevance as. Oh, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're breaking
Hello?
up a little bit. Can you repeat your objection?
Yes, under Rule 401 and 402 to relevance as to the game on Avery's phone.
Any response?
Your Honor, I'm establishing that Alex Cifuentes was in possession of Avery's phone the last time she remembers having it.
Any reply?
No response, Your Honor.
All right, I am going to allow the question. You may continue. You may answer.
So I can re-ask the question. Avery let you play a game on her phone right before she went to the restroom and left.
I mean, we were having such a great talk that she felt comfortable enough to give me her phone to play a game, totally under her awareness.
So you admit that you were in possession of Avery's phone that day?
Yes, and she knew that.
And you claim that Avery texted you after the vandalism incident to convince Mr. Brackman to let her back on the team.
She confided in me because we were friends.
And after you were informed about the murder of your coach, you told a detective about these messages. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
And you had to go on down to the police station to do an interview.
Correct.
But you didn't actually bring your phone to the police station.
I had to charge my phone because it was very old, and when my dad called me, I just simply forgot about it.
You didn't bring your phone, even though you claim it had a text message thread on it that you believed could help the police figure out who killed Mr. Brackman.
I offered to bring it back, but they had sufficient evidence with my screenshots that were the correct messages anyway, so they didn't need me to.
Ms. Cifuentes, that was not my question. I asked you if you brought your phone.
I couldn't, no.
So you just sent screenshots of the text messages?
I sent the screenshots of the real text messages, yes.
Screenshots that the police or anyone would have no idea of knowing if they were altered?
Well, they were the real text messages.
And you are aware that there are apps that can generate text messages?
Theoretically, someone could, but I'm not all that good with technology.
And you got rid of that phone?
It was very old, as I said, and it broke, so I had to get a new one.
No one will ever actually get to see those text messages on your phone for themselves, will they?
On my phone physically, no, but the real text messages, yes, and the screenshots.
Thank you, Ms. Cifuentes. No further questions.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Kim, did you have any redirect?
No redirect necessary, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. With that then, for the prosecution, how would you like to proceed with your case in chief?
Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Detective Jordan Markowitz to the stand.
All right. Detective Markowitz, I will just remind you as well that you are still under oath.
Of course, yes.
All right, you may go ahead, Ms. Hunt.
Thank you. Hello, can you please introduce yourself to us?
Hello, my name is Jordan Markowitz.
What is it you do, Miss Markowitz?
I'm a detective with the Denver Police Department.
Detective, could you please tell us how you are involved with this case?
I was the detective assigned to investigate the death of Mackenzie Brackman, and I was also the responding detective after the police call made to Brackman's house on Friday, March 6th of 2020.
Now, before we talk about your findings in this case, I'd like to talk a bit about your background. What type of detective are you?
I'm a crime scene investigator specifically.
What type of training was necessary to become a detective?
Well, after working for the DPD for about 6 years, I was qualified to become a detective. So in addition to completing police academy and having years of experience in the field, I then became qualified to become a detective, and I've been working as a detective for 7 years now.
And do you have any specific training or qualifications in other areas?
I do actually. I have specialized training and experience with cell phones. I have a cell phone technology and data recovery certification from the American Academy of Law Enforcement.
And what experience do you have in the field of cell phones?
Well, I use forensic software to download information from a cell phone, acquire and interpret call records, and obtain and interpret cell tower data. And I've used these techniques to download the contents from hundreds of cell phones and have used cell tower data in over 50 cases.
How do you use these records as a detective?
Well, the information from the cell phone data gives us detectives a lot of information as to where suspects are at a given moment, as well as their regularly conducted incoming or outgoing calls.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to offer Detective Jordan Markowitz as an expert in crime scene investigation in the gathering and interpreting of data from both cell phones and cell towers.
Any objection from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the detective will be endorsed in those specific areas. Thank you. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, let's talk about the evidence of this case. When did you arrive at the crime scene?
I first got there around 2:20 p.m. after the paramedics and responding officers had all finished their jobs and secured the scene.
What did you see at the scene initially?
Well, before entering the home, I observed the victim through the open front door where I saw Brackman deceased on the floor. There was a pool of blood on the upper left back and shoulder, as well as underneath the victim, and there was a large knife also covered in blood next to the victim's body, and from that, it was clear that they had been stabbed.
Your Honor, permission for Detective Markowitz to constructively view Exhibit 1.
The detective may.
Detective, you are now looking at Exhibit 1. I'll give you a second to pull it up.
I am, yes.
Can you please tell us what this exhibit is a photo of?
Yes, this is a photo of Mackenzie Brackman deceased just inside the front door of his home.
Is this an accurate representation of the victim as you saw him?
It is, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to offer Exhibit 1 into evidence.
All right, any objection to Exhibit 1, Ms. Mylan?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. 1 will come into evidence. You may continue.
Thank you. And Your Honor, permission for Detective Markowitz to now constructively view Exhibit 5.
Detective Markowitz may view Exhibit, did you say 5?
Yes.
5, yes, thank you.
Detective, can you tell us what this photograph shows?
This is a photograph of the knife that was on the floor next to the victim.
Did you take this photo?
No, I didn't. The forensic team did.
Based on what you saw at the scene, is it an accurate representation of the knife as you saw it?
It is, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to offer Exhibit 5 into evidence.
All right, Ms. Mylan, any objection to 5?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 5 will come into evidence. You may continue.
Thank you. Detective, did you enter the home?
Yes, I did. Upon seeing the victim, I walked around the house and noticed that the side gate and the back door were both open. I entered through the back door, which took me into the kitchen.
What did you observe in the kitchen?
I noticed that everything seemed pretty much intact, though there was a large knife missing from the knife block in the kitchen. And from standing in the kitchen, I could see the dining room where I observed both a broken plate and a knocked over chair.
Your Honor, permission for Detective Markowitz to constructively view Exhibits 8 and 9.
The detective may view 8 and 9.
Can you tell us what these photographs show?
Exhibit 8 is a photograph of the knife block, and Exhibit 9 is the photograph of a broken plate on the floor.
Are these accurate representations of the knife block and the broken plate as you saw them at the crime scene?
They are, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to offer both Exhibits 8 and Exhibit 9 into evidence.
All right, Ms. Mylan, any objections to 8 or 9?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 8 and 9 will both come in at this time.
Thank you. Detective, did you conduct any other analysis of the crime scene?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, when I walked around the back of the house, I did actually notice Ring cameras. So Ring cameras are doorbells that have cameras on them that start filming anytime they detect motion. So after downloading the contents of Mr. Brackman's phone, I was able to access his Ring account to view the videos that the cameras took that day.
Were any of these videos significant?
Yes, I did actually find a couple significant videos.
What did they show?
Well, they showed someone about the same size and build of the suspect wearing a mask, hiding their face, as well as hooded clothing, approaching the house.
And what was the person in the video doing?
The first camera picked them up attempting to open the locked front door. Once realizing the door was locked, they then went through the back gate a few seconds later. And 20 seconds later, the Ring camera from the back door records them coming inside the home. And then finally, the same front camera captured the suspect running out of the house.
Your Honor, permission for Detective Markowitz to constructively view Exhibit 12.
Okay, Detective Markowitz may view 12.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Can you tell us what this video shows?
Yes, so after walking through the back gate, the intruder then enters the house through the back door, and Exhibit 12 is the Ring camera footage from the camera that was pointed at the back door, and it shows them entering the home.
What time was this video taken?
This video was taken around 1:05, 1:10 p.m.
Is this an accurate representation of the Ring camera footage that you collected through the victim's account?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to offer Exhibit 12 into evidence.
All right, Ms. Nyland, any objection to 12?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 12 will come in.
Detective, I would now like to discuss any conclusions you may have come to through your analysis. Did you obtain cell phone records?
Yes, I did actually. Becker's attorney provided me with the phone number for the phone that Ms. Becker claims to have lost, and I then got a court order to obtain call detail records from Becker's service provider, as well as cell tower records on March 6th of 2020.
Can you tell us what call detail records are?
Absolutely. So these are records that are kept in order to record when you place or receive a call or send and receive a text. These records show the date and time of the interaction, its status, which is incoming or outgoing, whether it was a call or text, as well as its duration. Moreover, the record identifies which cell tower the phone actually communicated with, and it actually even tells us which antenna specifically on the tower that the phone communicated with. And in most cases, much more often than not, it connects to the tower nearest to it.
Your Honor, permission for Detective Markowitz to constructively view Exhibit 15.
Permission granted.
Let me know when you have it in front of you.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Did you assemble this diagram?
I did, yes.
What is it a diagram of?
This diagram details all of the call detail records from Becker's cell phone that day, all of the antennas that her phone connected with, and the records are voluminous.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to offer Exhibit 15 into evidence.
All right, any objection to 15?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 15 will come in.
In your experience, Detective, what does this diagram tell us about the location of Becker's cell phone?
Well, the CDRs, or the call detail records that I had access to, show that several calls and texts were sent to Avery Becker's phone from another phone prior to the time that Brackman was killed. I later identified this other phone as that of Taylor Perkins. And what the data showed was that no call was actually answered, which means that Perkins was calling Becker, but Becker was not answering. So if you'll look at the diagram, you'll notice that Becker received a text at 12:47 p.m. from Perkins, through the tower covering Becker's home. And another text was then sent 8 minutes later, again, with no response. Finally, there came two incoming, but again, unanswered calls at 1:05 p.m. and 1:06 p.m., followed again by a text message at 1:17 p.m. All three of these communications went through the antenna that was covering Mr. Brackman's residence.
And as a crime scene investigator, did you reach an opinion as to what occurred at the crime scene on March 6th around the time of 1 p.m.?
I did, yes.
Can you tell us what that opinion is, please?
Absolutely. Well, based on my experience and my knowledge of cellular communication, it's clear to me that Becker, in fact, traveled from her home on March 6th to Brackman's residence and was there from at least 1:05 to 1:17 p.m. that day.
Thank you, Detective Markowitz. No further questions.
All right, thank you. I will turn it over then for cross-examination. Ms. Nyland?
Yes, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, you knew the victim, Mackenzie Brackman, before he was killed.
I did actually. I was in several of his cases because I was the responding detective for several homicide scenes there.
You had the displeasure of being crossed by him.
Yes, he certainly was a difficult lawyer to deal with.
And Brackman would take a lot of cheap shots attacking police work.
Occasionally, yes, but this is the case with many lawyers.
So you did not think highly of Mackenzie Brackman?
Objection, relevance.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. This goes to show the detectives, or that the detective could have possibly, that the detective had a personal bias in this case, and this bias could have led her to cut corners and jump to conclusions deeply impacting this case.
All right, any reply, Ms. Hunt?
Under Rule 401, this evidence is irrelevant. I am unclear. It is unclear how Detective Markowitz's relationship with Brackman would create any bias as to her investigation, as she has previously been admitted as an expert as a crime scene investigator, which provides her with experience in the field and a reputation as a crime scene investigator.
All right, thank you. I am going to allow the question over objection, so you may continue if you need to re-ask it, Ms. Nyland.
Would you like me to re-ask the question, Detective Markowitz?
No need to. You know, it's actually interesting. It's just, I would never let the way that someone conducts their own business in their own court be held against them in a trial that is about their own untimely and tragic death. I would never let that happen.
Alex was the first mock trial student you called.
That's correct, yes.
And Alex provided the biggest break in the case for you.
Yes, Alex was extremely helpful.
And this was due in part to the screenshots of the messages.
In part, it was, yes.
Screenshots of messages that could have been altered.
Potentially, but it is highly difficult for, I would say, a high school student to be able to do that.
However, you did not collect Alex's phone to verify these screenshots.
No, in fact, when I asked Alex to come in and meet with me to ask Alex some questions, I'm assuming it was just the nerves of having to meet with a police officer, but she forgot her phone, unfortunately.
Even though you noted that Alex was the first teenager you had ever met that did not have her cell phone with her?
Again, it really is unfortunate that she forgot it, but it must have been the nerves of meeting with me.
You didn't have her simply bring back the phone to you later?
I didn't. When I asked her for the screenshots, even though it wasn't as good as I would have hoped, as it would have been getting the actual phone with me, the screenshots aren't even exactly needed.
You obtained CDRs from Avery's cell phone.
That's correct, yes. I actually asked to see the cell phone, but because Becker claims to have lost the cell phone, I just had to use her cell phone number.
And through the CDRs, you discovered that Perkins was calling Avery, but Avery was not picking up.
That's correct. There were no calls or texts answered in that time frame.
And you believe that this is because Avery was in the middle of committing a crime?
I do, yes. In my opinion, it is very clear that when Avery was at Mr. Brackman's house intending to vandalize, she was not responding to the text messages from Perkins.
And you maintained this belief even after you had been informed that Avery Becker had in fact lost her phone on March 5th, a full day before Mackenzie Brackman had been murdered?
I absolutely do still hold this opinion because it is just claimed that Avery Becker had lost her phone.
But the CDRs you testified to earlier are all from March 6th, after Avery had lost her phone.
They're all after Avery, after the fact, claims to have lost her phone.
So the CDRs cannot account for Avery's actions, just where her phone was.
Well, they can in fact account for her if her phone was on her person, which in my opinion, it most definitely was.
Additionally, there's a complicated algorithm that pairs a cell phone with the best tower.
That's correct. In most cases, it is always the tower nearest to the phone.
But not always.
Not 100% of the time, but almost 100% of the time.
So these CDRs cannot tell us with any degree of certainty where Avery's phone was.
They can tell us with a high degree of certainty, just not 100%.
And they absolutely cannot tell us where Avery was if they can't tell us where her phone was either.
Well, if she in fact was with her phone, which in my opinion she was, that and paired with the rest of the evidence against Miss Becker, it is clear to me from the CDRs that she was in fact traveling from her home to Brackman's home.
Additionally, your original thought was that Brackman had interrupted a burglary.
That's what I originally thought when seeing the scene.
And since Brackman did criminal defense work, you questioned if this could be the work of a disgruntled ex-client.
Of course, yes. As a police officer doing the best police work to my ability, it's up to me to follow all possible leads.
But you didn't follow either of these leads up.
It was very clear to me, paired with all of the evidence that I got from both the call detail records, the screenshots, as well as testimonies from Alex Cifuentes, it's clear to me that it was in fact Avery.
So that's a no, you didn't follow any other leads up.
There was no reason for me to, no.
You never contacted any of Mackenzie Brackman's former clients?
None that I mentioned in my statement.
Nor anyone else for that matter?
None that I felt the need to mention in my statement.
You only ever investigated one person, Avery Becker.
That's the only one that I mentioned in my statement, correct.
You failed to complete a thorough investigation into this crime.
Objection argumented.
Any response?
I can rephrase.
All right, I will allow you to withdraw that question and rephrase or move on.
Detective, you did not authenticate screenshots that were sent to you.
No, I did not find the need to, because the screenshots paired with the rest of the evidence heavily pointed to Avery Becker.
Yet you also failed to collect CDRs from the day prior to the murder.
Yes, there was no need for me to collect CDRs the day prior to the murder.
You also failed to investigate other leads?
There are no other leads that I mentioned in my statement having investigated, only the ones that I considered.
And you also failed to interview other possible suspects in this case.
I actually attempted to contact Avery Becker to interview her, but at that point she had already contacted a lawyer who did not allow me to do so. And there are no other ones that I mentioned in my statement other than Alex Cifuentes.
Thank you, Detective. No further questions.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Hunt, did you have any redirect for Detective Markowitz?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. With that then, the prosecution, how would you like to proceed with your case in chief?
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Kyle Cusack to the stand.
All right, and Mr. Cusack, I will simply remind you that you are still under oath. You may go ahead, counsel.
Hi, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Kyle Cusack, K-U-Z-A-K.
And what is it that you do for a living?
I am a crime scene reconstruction investigator, or a CSR for short, for the city of Denver. And I am also certified by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation.
What does CSRs do?
CSRs are responsible for investigating crime scenes, as well as reviewing photographs and video evidence of crimes. I always assume that all cases will go to trial, and I also organize and document all of my evidence so that it's easy to reconstruct later on.
How long have you been a CSR?
I've been a CSR for 19 years.
What have you done in this time?
Well, in my time, I've had a lot of experience with complex crime scenes, such as home invasions and burglaries.
As a seasoned CSR, how are you connected with Mr. Brackman's death?
Well, I visited the scene of the crime, and I also reviewed the police reports for the case. I also looked at photographical evidence and video footage, as well as the autopsy report.
And based on your investigation, did you reach a conclusion about what happened?
Yes, I did.
And how exactly?
Well, as always, I followed the fundamental principle of letting the evidence guide me to my theory. More specifically, I used Tom Bevel and Ross Gardner's 7-step methodology for event analysis.
How exactly do these processes work?
Well, I review contextual information using a step-by-step process. I note relationships between all of the evidence to help form the chronology of the case. This is what I've always done, and it's proven to be really reliable.
Your Honor, I now offer I now offer Kyle Kuzak as an expert in crime scene reconstruction.
All right, any objection to that endorsement?
Yes, I would like to voir dire, Your Honor.
All right, you may.
You are a crime scene reconstruction investigator,
Yes, that is my job.
and you are simply a civilian employee,
Yes, I'm not a police officer.
and you've never investigated a case as a police officer.
No, because that is not my job. I'm a crime scene reconstruction investigator.
Yet you are testifying on what happened at a crime scene and have never investigated a case as a police officer.
No, because that's not my job. I simply review the evidence and help that form my theory of the case.
Your Honor, I object to this witness being admitted as an expert in this field due to a lack of experience and qualifications to draw an expert conclusion about the case.
All right, any response?
Yes, Your Honor. This objection goes more to the weight of the testimony rather than the ability for the witness to testify, seeing as he's being qualified as a crime scene reconstruction investigator, not a police officer.
All right, I will allow the endorsement over objection. So he will be endorsed as an expert in crime scene reconstruction. You may continue questioning.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Mr. Kuzak, what's your expert opinion about what happened on March 6, 2020?
This was clearly a burglary that got out of control.
Could you walk us through the steps that got you to this conclusion?
Yeah, so the very first piece of evidence that I reviewed was the Ring doorbell video footage.
Why'd you look at the Ring footage?
Well, Ring doorbells are a form of surveillance, which is essential to crime scene reconstruction. We need to know as much as we can about the actual scene in order to figure out what happened.
What did the footage show?
The footage showed somebody entering the home via the back door.
Now, what had occurred once the intruder got inside?
The intruder and Mr. Brackman encountered each other. Brackman logically would have been notified of their presence at the
Your
front door.
Honor,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What was the objection?
speculation, Your Honor.
Okay, any response?
Yes, Your Honor. This is not speculation as it is a reasonably based fact based on the evidence that Mr. Kuzak was made aware of as he knows about the Ring subscription that Mr. Brackman owned.
All right, any further reply? Ms. Henderson.
Your Honor, Mr. Kuzak is speculating that they had an interaction without actual evidence that they did.
All right, I am not going to allow it. I will sustain the objection. You may continue,
right.
Ms. Ahmed.
So, now you know that the intruder is inside, as you saw through the Ring footage. And then what happened?
Well, I saw that Mr. Brackman was armed with a knife, and there was clearly some kind of struggle that ensued between both parties. And the two met at the back door, and they made their way toward the kitchen. And in the process, they knocked over a plate.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you reviewed Mackenzie Brackman's autopsy report. Would you recognize this report if you saw it again?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, permission for Mr. Kuzak to constructively view what has previously been marked as Exhibit 19.
Granted.
You're now looking at Exhibit 19. What is it?
This is the autopsy report in which I reviewed as part of my investigation.
How did you obtain this record?
Well, a coroner is a public official, so an autopsy report is therefore a public record, and thus it's available to anybody.
Why did you look at this document?
Well, in order to get the most informed picture possible that I could, I needed to find out anatomically just how Mr. Brackman died.
Your Honor, I now offer Exhibit 19.
Any objection to 19, Ms. Henderson?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, 19 will come in.
Okay, Mr. Kuzak, what does this report show?
The autopsy report establishes that the knife was lodged into the victim's shoulder blade. And so the two must have been in some kind of bear hug position. And the intruder reached over and stabbed Mr. Brackman in the upper back. The report also showed how the knife would have actually entered the body.
What do you mean how the knife entered the body?
Well, the knife entered facing downward and partially forward. I know that the defense expert Van Owen sees this positioning as unlikely, but I disagree.
Why do you disagree?
That's just not enough basis to dismiss the theory. This is obviously not a seasoned killer, and they were in the midst of chaos in this struggle. So it's perfectly logical that the intruder just grabbed the knife in what may have been seen as an unnatural position.
Now, who is Professor Van Owen?
Professor Van Owen is the defense expert on this case. I reviewed Van Owen's theory just so that I could be as informed as possible.
And how did this theory alter your opinion?
It didn't.
Why not?
So I will admit that some of her opinions are out of my expertise, but I also know that Van Owen is not a CSR. So she can only read reports and use those to base her opinions.
And how does this compare to what you do?
Well, this is never the same as actually being at the scene of the crime, which I do as a CSR, and I also am interacting with the evidence, and she can only read reports and then base her opinions off of them.
So, through your investigation, as well as your review of Van Owen's theory, what events caused the death of Mr. Brackman?
An intruder entered Mackenzie Brackman's home. Brackman was alerted by the Ring app and armed himself with a kitchen knife. The two then got into a struggle. The intruder grabbed the knife and stabbed Mr. Brackman, leaving him to bleed to death. This was clearly a burglary that got out of control.
Thank you, Mr. Cusack. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. I will turn it over then for cross-examination. Ms. Henderson, you may go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor. You have two key principles that you use to guide your work.
Yes, that's correct.
And this method would require that you visit the scene of the crime.
Yes, I do visit the scene of the crime.
And you were at the scene of the crime after evidence had been processed by the crime lab.
Yes, that is correct.
You take pride in conducting organized investigations.
Of course, I spend a lot of time organizing and putting all the evidence together to form a nice chronological story.
You mentioned in your testimony the photographs of the blood droplets are missing.
Yes, photographs went missing much after I had reviewed them, so I had nothing to do with the file corruption.
You use these photos to help you understand the chronology of what happened at the crime scene?
Not just these photos, I used a ton of other evidence, but these photos were part of it.
Would you consider these photos important?
Of course they're important. All of the evidence was important.
But these important pieces of evidence are not here for the jury to review today.
Not that I'm aware of. However, I had nothing to do with that, so it wasn't my fault.
The scuff marks in Brackman's kitchen indicate a struggle.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know when these scuff marks were made?
I'm not 100% certain. However, considering a murder and a burglary did take place in the kitchen, it is very logical to assume that these scuff marks were made during this incident.
Mr. Cusack, do you know the exact date of when these scuff marks were made?
I do not know the exact date. However, I am pretty positive that these occurred at the time of the murder.
Is that a no?
No, I do not know the exact date.
Can scuff marks be indicative of anything other than a struggle?
Of course they can, but in this case, it's not likely.
If you do not know when the scuff marks were made, you do not know if they were made by the victim or the attacker.
I can't be certain, no. However, I'm pretty sure, yes.
Looking to the other evidence you found in the kitchen, you believe the murder weapon was the knife.
Yes, that's correct. There was a missing slot in the knife block.
You found the supposed murder weapon was a different brand than all the other knives in the block in Brackman's kitchen.
Yes, that's true. However, of course, you don't have to have the same brand of knife in a knife block. It's just a knife block for knives.
You claim it is likely that Brackman rushed to pull the knife out of an otherwise matching set of knives.
Yes, that's correct. He probably just grabbed the knife because he was frightened, as he should be.
Do you know this for sure?
I'm not 100% certain. However, the evidence did help me formulate my theory. So therefore, I'm basing it off of the evidence.
You theorize that Brackman pulled the knife out himself.
Yes, that's correct. He was probably freaking out.
If your theory is true, he would have to reach across his back with his left hand to pull out the knife.
Yes, that's correct. It would have been something like this, and he would have pulled it out.
Did you notice any blood on his left hand when you visited the scene?
No, I did not. However, when I've reviewed the photographs of the crime scene, I could only see the back of his hands, and there was no photo of the palm of his hands. So there easily could have been blood on that.
Do you notice any blood on his right hand?
Again, same answer. I didn't notice any, but there very well could have been on the palm of his hand.
That's no.
No, I did not see any.
With no blood on either of Brackman's hands, the evidence we have available is not consistent with this theory that he removed the murder weapon on his own.
Again, you cannot see the palm of his hands, which very well could have had blood on them.
You insist your conclusion is the only possible scenario.
Yes, I let all of the evidence help me formulate this theory.
Yet, to be clear, you came to this expert conclusion about this case without any biological evidence that connected Avery Becker to the scene.
Well, the perpetrator was entirely covered, so it would have been pretty hard to find any DNA.
Is that a no?
No, there was no DNA that linked to Becker, considering the perpetrator was gloved and covered.
Referring back to Exhibit 17, you include individuals in your exhibit list such as Brandon Digby and Josiah Mitchell, yet you do not know what they said in their interviews.
No, that's not part of my job. I simply am a crime scene reconstruction investigator.
So we have no proof that you know what these witnesses said, even though you used these pieces of evidence to construct your theory about the case.
Again, it's not part of my job to know what they said. It's part of my job to reconstruct a crime scene.
You can't come to a conclusion about a case if you do not know the substance of every piece of evidence you mention in your spreadsheets.
Again, the evidence helped me.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is asking about evidence, the contents of evidence which has not been admitted.
Any response, Ms. Henderson?
Your Honor, Exhibit 17 has been admitted into evidence.
Okay. I am not going to allow the question. I think you have about 5 seconds if you want to get one more question in.
Thank you, Your Honor. With multiple pieces of crucial missing evidence, can you come to a conclusion?
All right, thank you.
Your Honor.
And Ms. Amon, did you have any redirect for Mr. Kuzak?
No redirect necessary. Thank you, Your Honor.
Right, thank you. And with that, I understand those are the all of the prosecution's witnesses. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so the prosecution rests now. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Then for the defense team, I will turn it over to you. How would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Professor Van Owen to the stand.
All right, and Professor Van Owen, I will just remind you that you also are under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may go ahead, Ms. Mylan.
Thank you. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Professor Blake Van Owen.
Professor Van Owen, why are you here today?
I'm testifying as an expert witness on behalf of the defense.
How did you start out your career in criminal justice?
I started out my career as a police officer, and then I worked briefly as a school resource officer, a private security guard, and then I went into private investigation.
What is your current profession?
While practicing as a private investigator, I taught a police procedures class and received my master's degree in criminal justice. I've been a professor at CU for the past 5 years teaching police practices.
Is there anything else you do besides teaching and private investigation?
Yes, I'm an expert courtroom witness in the areas of police practices, crime scene reconstruction, false arrest, cell tower analysis, general police investigations, and forensic evidence techniques.
And how many times have you consulted on cases?
I've consulted on more than 100 cases.
Where have you been qualified as a defense expert?
For the U.S. district courts in the districts of Colorado, Kansas, and Arizona, and then for state courts in Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and New Mexico.
What topics have you testified on as an expert?
Crime scene reconstructions 8 times, cell tower analysis 5 times, general police investigation 12 times.
And are these subjects relevant to the case here today?
Definitely.
Your Honor, at this time, I offer Professor Van Owen as an expert in police investigation procedures, crime scene reconstruction, and cell tower data analysis.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to perform a short voir dire.
May.
Hi, Professor. You have no training in the field of crime scene reconstruction, isn't that right?
No, but I've reviewed multiple cases on it.
As well as no education in the field?
In crime scene reconstruction specifically, no.
And no degree in the field of crime scene reconstruction?
No.
And you're not certified as a CSR?
No, not personally.
And you've never worked or even reconstructed a single crime scene, isn't that right?
That's right, but I have reviewed multiple cases and testified in court for crime scene reconstruction.
So that's a yes to my question?
Yes, that's right.
Your Honor, at this time, I object to Professor Van Owen being availed as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, but not the other areas.
All right. Any response to that objection?
Yes, Your Honor. My witness's experience alone provides or qualifies her as an expert in this field.
All right, thank you. Well, I am going to decline the endorsement in crime scene reconstruction. However, Professor Van Owen will be endorsed in the other areas offered as an expert witness. You may continue with questioning.
Thank you. Before I begin, did you know anyone involved in this case previous to starting your investigation?
Yes, I knew Investigator Kuzak professionally, whom I generally like.
Additionally, are you getting paid to testify here today?
Yes, and I like to be completely open and honest with my jury, so I'm being paid $225 an hour for my general police investigation, and then $450 an hour for court testimony.
Now I would like to direct your attention to this case. What information have you reviewed?
I reviewed the police reports, the crime scene reconstruction by Kyle Kuzak, cell tower reports and exhibits prepared by Detective Markowitz, school records from the day of the murder, and then I looked at things that I thought were neglected.
Let's start with the Ring doorbell. How is the Ring doorbell relevant to this case?
This is as critical to the prosecution's case as the axle of your car is to you when you're going 90 miles per hour on the highway. This can indicate if Brackman knew that there was an intruder coming, and it can give insight onto knowing who brought the knife.
What was the prosecution's take on this evidence?
The prosecution says that Mr. Brackman must have known about the intruder because of his Ring doorbell.
Do you agree with this conclusion?
No, I have a Ring doorbell set up myself, so I know that you can turn on or off notifications and you can turn on and off your ringer. So if Brackman had his notifications or his ringer turned off, then he wouldn't even have been aware that there was anyone outside of his house.
And did Brackman have his notifications turned on?
No, the prosecution just assumed that he had his ringer turned on without any evidence, but the truth is we'll never know.
And why won't we ever know if Brackman had these notifications turned on or off?
Bad police investigation.
In reviewing previously admitted Exhibit 18, never mind. Moving on. Have you independently looked at the prosecution's CDR evidence that they testified to earlier?
Yes, I have.
In your expert opinion, what can CDRs tell us about a case?
They can be really helpful to some cases. They can tell us the ingoing and outgoing calls and texts and what the other number was involved in the calls or texts. And it can potentially tell us a very general location of a phone, like a city.
What can't CDRs tell us about a case?
CDRs cannot give us the precise location of a person or a phone.
And why can't CDRs give us a precise location of a phone?
Your phone will connect to the most convenient, which is usually the least busy cell tower. In a metropolitan setting, for example, a cell phone can generate 5 calls from the same location and connect to a different tower each time.
Are there other reasons why the CDR evidence should not be considered in this case?
We also know that people aren't always with their phones, and as Avery and Taylor both stated, Avery was not with her phone.
How does this conflict with Markowitz's conclusion?
Markowitz says that the CDRs indicate that Avery's phone traveled from somewhere near Avery's house to somewhere near Brackman's house just before the murder. But all we really know is that at a particular time, the phone communicated with the cell tower in that area. But we won't know where the phone was before then because Markowitz didn't bother obtaining that information.
Are there other concerns you have regarding these CDRs?
Yes, Markowitz also only looked at the information at the CDRs related to Avery Becker's phone. He should have looked at anyone else related to the case and their CDRs, like Taylor Perkins or Blair Rollins or any other mock trial student or a former client.
And did you examine the CDRs for anyone else who had a connection to this case?
I looked for Taylor Perkins's phone in the CDRs, something that Markowitz didn't do.
What did you find?
Well, I found there were corresponding calls and texts from Taylor Perkins's phone relayed by antennas 2 and 3, which cover the mall in Freischak, where Taylor and Avery both stated that they were at the time of the murder. These calls and texts are entirely consistent with Taylor and Avery's testimony of texting and calling Avery's phone to try and find it throughout the day.
Well, just a moment ago, you were explaining why CDRs cannot tell us the precise location of a person or a phone for that matter. What changed?
That's completely right. They can't tell us the precise location of a person or a phone, but we do know that Taylor stated that she was with her phone, whereas Avery stated that she had lost her phone.
So the police did not properly investigate the CDRs. Are there other aspects of the case the police also failed to properly investigate?
I'm just stunned that the police simply accepted screenshots that Alex, who is, by the way, the number 2 suspect on Cusack's own notes, simply accepted those screenshots that Alex sent them and didn't even bother to conduct a more thorough investigation of the phone itself.
Well, did the police have the necessary technology to conduct a more thorough investigation?
Yes, the Denver police use a technology called Celebrite, which is used for these exact purposes, but was not used in this case.
Why would the police want to use this technology and not just accept the screenshot?
The screenshot could have easily been doctored before it was sent out.
Besides the screenshot, scuff marks, CDRs, in your expert opinion, did the police properly investigate the rest of the crime?
No, the police also managed to lose pictures of blood drops in the hallway and pictures of apparent cast-offs on the wall near the front door, showing an entirely incompetent police department. They also failed to investigate any other suspects, like Blair Rollins.
Who is Blair Rollins?
Blair Rollins is the child of Jonathan Rollins, who happens to be one of Brackman's former clients. Jonathan Rollins was sentenced to a life in prison.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. This goes to the defense's theory of the case and possibly another suspect who the police failed to investigate.
All right, any reply?
Yes, Your Honor. This case itself is not about Jonathan Rollins, and therefore the fact that he was convicted confuses the issue and is irrelevant.
All right, thank you. I am going to allow the question over objection. You may answer, Professor.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Why is Blair Rollins a suspect?
Well, Blair Rollins was actually listed as suspect number 3, but was never investigated thoroughly. But Blair does live near Avery. Blair was missing from school the day of the murder. Blair has the same height and build as Avery, and after graduation, Blair left Colorado and has yet to hear from the police, who never contacted her.
Most importantly, did you find that Blair Rollins had a motive?
Surely watching your father be put away for murder is more of a motive to kill than being cut from a mock trial team.
Was there anything else that led you to Blair Rollins?
Yes, I obtained an electronic recording which demonstrates Blair's substantial motive to commit this crime, in my opinion.
Let the record reflect that I'm showing opposing counsel a copy of Exhibit 22. Thank you. Professor Van Owen, have you previously reviewed what has been marked as Exhibit 22?
I have.
To the best of your knowledge, is this exhibit an accurate and fair depiction of this audio recording?
It is.
At this time, I move for Exhibit 22 to be admitted into evidence and placed for the jury.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, hearsay and relevance.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. To the hearsay objection under Rule 803(2), this is an excited utterance. And to the relevance objection, Your Honor, the facts outlined by Professor Van Owen gives this exhibit relevance enough as it goes to the defense's theory of the case and potentially another suspect's motive.
Any further reply?
Yes, Your Honor, to the relevance response, we do not know that Blair was in the court during the time that this statement was made. Therefore, the ability to assess whether or not his father's statement had any impact on him is nearly impossible.
All right, thank you. I am going to sustain the objection and ask you to move on, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you listen to what has been marked as Exhibit 22?
I did.
And what did you gather from this exhibit?
Well, I gathered that Jonathan Rollins was clearly vengeful towards Brackman.
So, in your expert opinion, who killed Mackenzie Brackman?
I can't say with 100% certainty who killed Brackman, nor can the police or the prosecution. I do know one thing for sure, though. The police on this case did not conduct a proper or complete investigation. They heard hoofbeats in Wyoming, assumed they were hearing zebras, and brought it to court with not even a scuff mark of evidence. If Cusack and Markowitz had investigated any further, it would have come to the same conclusion I did. Avery Becker did not kill Mackenzie Brackman.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, thank you. I will turn it over then for cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Professor. My name's Abby Amon, and I will be asking you a few questions today. As a former police officer, you know the ins and outs of policing, don't you?
Yes.
So you're pretty versed in this field, correct?
That's right.
However, you quit your job after you injured a woman.
Yes.
Right? And now the fact of the matter is, instead of working for the police, you work against them now.
I think it's a better position for me to be in. I think there's a lot of places where the police have dropped the ball, and it's a really important position for someone to take up.
And finding these places where the police have dropped the ball is your job. It's how you make money, right?
Yes, exactly. I find it happens very often.
So, as versed in the field of policing as you are, you would agree that under policing, there is crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and general police investigation, correct?
Yes, there's a lot of different parts to policing.
With this in mind, let's take a look at your thoughts on the police investigation, beginning with your critique of Detective Markowitz's cell tower opinions. Cell tower opinions and data falls squarely under cell tower data, which is one of your specialties, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And you state that Markowitz only subpoenaed information from a limited time and of Avery's phone, correct?
Exactly.
And yet you didn't attempt to gather any information from a larger window of time or Avery or Alex's phone. Isn't that right?
That's right. And in hindsight, I should have, but once again, I don't have the burden of proof upon my shoulders.
Well, we're not talking about the burden of proof. We're talking about what you did or didn't do in your investigation. And it's your job to investigate as far as you possibly can, correct?
It's my job to look at the police investigation.
And so, looking at the police investigation, you found a flaw and didn't really look further into it, correct?
I found multiple flaws in this case.
That's right. You did find multiple flaws, yet none of which you actually further investigated. So let's take a look at one of your other flaws. You point out that these screenshots provided by Alex Cifuentes could have been doctored, correct?
Easily.
And yet you have no evidence that these specific screenshots were doctored. Isn't that right?
We have no evidence that they weren't.
I would like it if you would answer my question, please.
That's
You
right.
don't have any. Thank you.
Yes.
And then moving on to the notifications. You say that we don't know the notification settings on Mr. Brackman's phone, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, the police never got that information.
And did you look to see if you could get that information?
No, I didn't have access to that phone.
Well, you did tell us just earlier that general police investigation falls under one of your specialties. Isn't that right?
That's right.
So you could have investigated further into the notification settings, correct?
That's right. I think even more importantly, though, the prosecution should have.
Well, I know that that's what you think, but you yourself didn't. And that's because the fact of the matter is you just wanted to make the police look bad. You didn't really care what the evidence showed. Isn't that right?
That's not right. I do care what the evidence shows.
If you cared what the evidence showed, wouldn't you have tried to figure out what it showed?
The evidence shows that the police conducted a sloppy investigation.
Okay. Now, you're here critiquing this merit of this police investigation. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And yet, all you have are a few speculative statements formulated by an incomplete investigation, or as you call, partial investigation, driven by the motive to find where the police dropped the ball. Correct?
They dropped the ball a lot in this case.
And your goal was to figure out where they did that, right?
Yes. Wasn't that difficult?
Because that's how you make your money.
No, I also teach a class at CU.
You do make money finding where the police dropped the ball, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. With that then, how would the defense like to proceed with their case?
The defense calls Taylor Perkins to the stand.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Perkins, I will just remind you that you are also under oath still.
Oh.
All right, you may go ahead, counsel.
Please state your name for the jury.
Taylor Perkins.
Tell us about yourself.
I'm a freshman at CU Boulder. I went to Colorado High School. I'm just a pretty average guy. I like to play video games and stuff like that.
How are you connected to today's case?
I was asked to testify. I am Avery's best friend who has been charged with murdering our late mock trial coach, which is truly heartbreaking for all the people that knew him. I'm just here to do my part by telling the truth to the jury.
How do you know Avery?
We were best friends in high school. We would drive together to school when we had first off, and we hung out all the time. I honestly don't think I would have done mock trial if it wasn't for Avery. It was great being on the team with her.
How did Avery contribute to the team?
Avery was amazing. She was by far the best lawyer on the team. She was really good at thinking on her feet, which is really important in mock trial. Even though she wasn't always as prepared as she should have been, she always did a great job.
From your observations, what was Brackman and Avery's relationship like?
Avery's effortless but incredibly successful approach to mock trial honestly drove Brackman crazy. He always gave her a hard time, which caused tension. It seemed like a classic coach to student dynamic.
Did that tension ever escalate or intensify?
Yes, about a month before regionals last year, Avery came to practice as unprepared as I've ever seen. Even though winging it, she performed her closing flawlessly. But because it was a bit off track from what was prepared, Brackman became so furious he demoted her to the B team.
What happened after that practice?
I decided to step down from the team in support of my friend. I knew if I stepped down, Avery had a good chance of getting back on the team.
Why did you do that?
It really wasn't a hard decision for me. Mock trial meant more to Avery than it did to me. I know she didn't always try that hard, but she was definitely A-team material. She was what made the team great and had the awards to prove it.
What happened after you stepped down from the team?
Once I left the team, coach had no choice but to put Avery back on the A-team. And I know I did the right thing. Avery won best attorney and best closing argument at our regional tournament that year.
How were Brackman and Avery after that?
Well, they had some huge fight, which made her upset. That night, she told me she wrote on his car worst attorney award with what she thought was a dry erase marker. She could be immature and play a prank, but she wasn't malicious or violent.
Did Avery ever return to practice?
Brackman kicked her off the A-team for good, even though she apologized over and over. We talked about ways she could get back on. She even texted everyone on the team, and as a last effort went to practice on March 5th to talk it over with coach, but he told her to leave, which of course upset her. So we just hung out after that and went to the Fry Shack.
What is the Fry Shack?
Oh, it's just a burger place. We go there and hang out there a lot.
What happened at the Fry Shack?
Well, to our surprise, we ran into most of the mock trial team. Everyone was very sympathetic towards Avery, saying that it was unfair she was kicked off. Even Alex Cifuentes. Alex and Avery didn't really get along. I mean, on the surface, they were okay with each other, but way down, not too much. Alex always wanted the roles she got, and with her off the team, Alex finally had a chance to be a star. He had no interest in helping Avery get back on the team.
Objection, Your Honor. I object to the witness's statement that Alex always wanted the roles that Avery got under speculation and lack of foundation. The defense has not established that this vague conclusory statement was made by Alex or rationally based off of Taylor's perceptions.
Any response, Ms. Henderson?
Your Honor, this goes to Mr. Perkins' personal perception based on the 4 years that he spent on the mock trial team and his relationship with Avery.
Okay, any further reply?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense has not established that Taylor has witnessed Alex for the past 4 years on mock trial and has seen her behavior. Do not ask questions about that.
All right, I'm going to exclude that part of the statement, that last part, and strike it from the testimony. You may continue with direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. What happened next?
Well, Alex sat at her table and had a pretty passive-aggressive demeanor towards Avery, who eventually got upset and went to the bathroom. So upset, I'm pretty sure she even left her phone behind on the table. As soon as she came back, we left.
Could anyone have taken Avery's phone while she was in the bathroom?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Like I said, Alex was still at the table.
Did you and Avery go anywhere else after you left the Fry Shack that evening?
Yeah, we stopped by the mall for a bit and just hung out for the rest of the night.
Where were you the morning of Brackman's death?
On the morning of March 6th, I hadn't been able to reach Avery by text or by phone. Once she got to my house to pick me up for school, like she usually does, we realized her phone was missing.
Did you two spend time together that day?
Yeah, we skipped school and spent the rest of the day retracing our steps. Looked at every store at the mall where we'd been the day before. All I could remember was that I saw her phone on the table at the Fry Shack. So we went there. We ran into most of the mock trial kids, which is surprising because Brackman, I guess, hadn't shown up for practice.
Other than retracing your steps, did you try any other methods to locate Avery's phone?
Yeah, we texted and called it several times, but in retrospect, we should have just tried using Find My iPhone. I have an Android, and I forgot that you can just use the iCloud website to find an Apple device. It just wasn't my first nature.
To be clear, you and Avery were together the entire day that Brackman was
Yes. Yes, she could not have left me to go to Brackman's house at any point that day.
Did you ever find Avery's phone?
No, since she left it at the table where Alex was, it's possible he took it and made all those fake messages up just to set her up.
Did anyone else on the mock trial team have any conflict with Brackman besides Avery?
Nobody specific on the team, but it's galactic knowledge that one of our classmates, Blair Rawlings, hated Brackman for screwing up the case that sent his dad to prison. He was actually absent from school the day Brackman was killed. I wouldn't be surprised.
Objection, hearsay. Unrelated one.
Any response?
Your Honor, it's unclear where the hearsay is in his response.
That Blair Rawlins' father was sent to prison.
Oh, yes.
How Taylor knows this?
Again, based on his personal perception, because he went to school with Blair and was on the mock trial team for 4 years and a part of his school community, he has the qualifications to speak on this matter, as it was common knowledge.
May I respond?
You may.
That does not address my hearsay objection as to how he would have heard it from some other person who is not Blair or Jonathan Rawlins.
All right, thank you. I will sustain. You'll move on, Ms. Henderson.
Now that you have testified that you and Avery are best friends, does that mean that you would lie for her?
I would not lie about something like this. I could get prosecuted for perjury and sent to prison. Yes, I know she was my best friend, but giving her an alibi for murder is insane.
Thank you for your time today, Mr. Perkins. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Anything further from opposing counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, may I perform a cross-examination?
Okay.
You are best friends with Avery, right?
Yeah.
And on the day that Mr. Brackman was murdered, you ditched school for Avery.
Yeah, we skipped school to go look for her phone.
Right, you skipped the entire day of school to help Avery find her phone, right?
Yes.
You say Avery's phone was like her third kidney, never out of reach, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't notice that her phone was missing until the day after she lost it, right?
I know. It is a bit surprising.
Right, if Avery was so attached to her phone, like you say, wouldn't you think it's a little bit unusual that it took you guys that long to notice it was gone, right?
Yeah, it is a little bit unusual.
Objection. Speculation calls for a hypothetical.
Any response, Ms. Kim?
The witness just said that it was an unusual statement prior in his response to my previous question. I was following up on that statement.
Any further reply?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I will allow it. You may answer or continue your answer.
Thank you, Your Honor. This supposed phone search was what makes up the entirety of Avery's alibi, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So you claim that Avery didn't kill Mr. Brackman because she was with you looking for her phone all day.
Yeah, Avery and I were together the whole day looking for her phone.
Right, looking for a phone that happened to be lost even though it never leaves her side, right?
For the most part, but it was, an unusual situation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Perkins. You wouldn't have done mock trial if Avery didn't do it, correct?
Yeah, I think that Avery, introduced me in my trial, and I'm very happy she did.
And from what you've observed of Avery's participation in mock trial, she doesn't really put in any effort at all, right?
Yeah, sometimes she's not as prepared, but she always is amazing.
And your coach, Mr. Brackman, was frustrated that Avery didn't put in this effort, correct?
Yeah, he always had a pretty mean demeanor towards Avery.
So he kicked Avery off the A team, correct?
Yes.
And right after Avery was kicked off the A team, you quit in support of Avery, didn't you?
Yeah, I stepped down in support of my friend.
But Mr. Brackman did eventually let Avery back on the team, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Even though Avery tended to act in a rash manner.
Yeah, she could be a little immature and a little rash.
So Avery has a temper, wouldn't you say so?
I guess you could say a little bit.
And one time, she was so angry at Mr. Brackman that she vandalized his car, correct?
Yeah, she got frustrated and with what she thought was a erasable marker she wrote on his car.
Right, she was so upset that she willingly marched out of practice with a permanent marker to deface his car.
Yeah, but what she thought was an erasable marker.
Avery told you about how upset she was, right?
Yes, she did.
Avery vandalized Mr. Brackman's prized possession, don't you agree?
Yeah, it is sad.
I'd like now to talk about someone named Blair Rollins. You were not close with Blair Rollins, were you?
No.
And you were also not close with Alex Cifuentes?
No.
But you say that Blair and Alex were good friends, right?
Yes.
Relevance.
Any response to the relevance objection, Ms. Kim?
Yes, Your Honor. Blair Rollins is the character who the defense is arguing their alternate theory of the case on. I'm simply questioning about his relationship with Blair Rollins and his relationship to another witness in this trial, Alex Cifuentes.
All right, any further reply, Ms. Henderson?
Your Honor, we just established that Mr. Perkins was not close with Blair Rollins, and he does not need to, he's being asked about Blair and Alex's relationship.
Will you respond?
May.
I did not ask about their relationship. I asked him if the fact that he didn't know anything about their relationship is true.
Okay. And I think this witness testified that he didn't know either of the parties very well, so I'm not going to allow him to speculate or testify further as to that issue.
Thank you, Your Honor. You never liked or respected Mr. Brackman, correct?
No, I didn't think he was a very good coach or lawyer.
Thank you, Taylor. No further questions.
All right, any redirect, Ms. Henderson?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Perkins, Avery was your best friend and is your best friend.
Yes,
Would you lie for her?
I would never lie for her.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Perkins.
All right, any additional cross based on that limited redirect, Ms. Kim?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And with that, then, how would the defense like to proceed with their case?
Your Honor, the defense calls Avery Becker to the stand.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Becker, I will also remind you that you are under oath still.
Oh, yes.
All right, you may go ahead, Ms. Kozlowski.
Can you state your name for the record?
Yeah, my name is Avery Becker.
Why are you here today?
Well, I'm the defendant in this case, and I truly can't believe I'm here today. I've been accused of a horrific crime that I could never have ever done.
Tell us about the late Mr. Brackman.
He was my mock trial coach, and I'm just still in so much shock that he's no longer with us. We didn't have the best relationship, but I mean, they're saying I broke into the guy's house and that we got into a fight and that I stabbed him with a knife and I killed him. In a million years, I could never have done something like that.
Can you tell us about your experience with mock trial?
Yeah, of course. I just loved mock trial. I mean, to be frank, I was really, really good at it.
Tell us about what happened at the mock trial regional tournament.
Well, I won the Best Attorney Award and closer, too, which actually felt really good. And this is kind of embarrassing, but honestly, I was super proud of myself.
And what happened after your success at regionals?
Well, the practice after regionals, I had just won my 2 awards that I just told you about. But instead of congratulating me, Mr. Brackman started lecturing me about how I didn't follow his script. And he even said that I didn't deserve my awards. I know it sounds stupid, but it just made me feel so frustrated.
You rode on Coach Brackman's car. Can you tell the jury why you did that?
Yeah, well, I know I come across as very confident, but really I'm just a girl. And when he was saying I didn't deserve my awards and even that basically I was a bad attorney, I was so upset and I walked out of practice. I had what I truly thought was a dry erase marker in my hands. But when I saw his car, I wrote, oh God, it hurts to talk about. I'm just so embarrassed that I even did this, but I wrote Worst Attorney Award on his prized Porsche. I regret it so much, and I know that I really messed up.
What happened when he discovered this?
He saw the car and he started screaming at me, and he told me that I was off the team.
What happened after that?
Well, I went home to my mom and I was just crying and crying about it. I couldn't believe I was off the team. And honestly, I just felt so remorseful for the awful thing I had just done to his car. But she calmed me down as she always does.
Did you have any interactions with Mr. Brackman after that?
No, and I guess I never will. I tried so many times to apologize for what I did to his car. I went to his office, I texted him, I offered to scrub it. Heck, I even offered to get a job to pay for his car. Now, he'll never know how sorry I feel, and even how grateful I am for everything he did for our team.
Ms. Becker, what did you do on March 5th?
Well, I was super upset about being kicked off the team, and Taylor and I decided to go to the Fry Shack. Whenever I'm sad, I always go get a milkshake at the Fry Shack. And I do remember Alex being there because we don't really get along that well. And then some of the other people on the mock trial team as well. Then we went and did some retail therapy at the mall and went home.
Can you tell us what happened the day you found out you lost your phone, which was also the day Mr. Brackman was murdered, March 6th?
Yeah, well, in the morning I woke up and I couldn't find my phone anywhere. And I went to Taylor's house and we decided to skip school to look for it.
I mean, we were both seniors, so I didn't feel that badly about it, but still, I don't do things like that, you know?
Where did you go that day?
The last time I remembered having my phone was at the Fry Shack. So we went there and then we went to the mall to look for it.
What were you doing to try to find it?
We were calling it and texting it with Taylor's phone and just hoping that it would ring and we would hear it, but when we called, it would just go straight to voicemail.
Your Honor, my co-counsel is sharing what's been previously admitted as Exhibit 14.
Okay.
Ms. Becker, is that your name on the contact?
Yeah, it sure is, but my friends don't use my last name in their contacts, like something my grandma would do.
Did you send these texts?
No, that definitely wasn't me texting. I don't know how to use a comma to save my life.
Were you and Alex Cifuentes close?
Like I told you, not at all. I wouldn't have texted Alex for help. Alex wouldn't have even helped me anyway if I did ask her. Alex didn't want me back on the team because without me on the team, Alex would have been the best attorney.
Thank you, Ms. Mullens. We heard Professor Van Owen testify here today about Blair Rollins. Do you know Blair?
Yeah, of course. I know him because he goes to CHS. And everyone knows that Blair hated Brackman for screwing up his dad's case and getting his dad sent to prison. And yet I'm being accused of this? And all I ever did was have a few disagreements with Coach Brackman over mock trial. Oh my God, and now that I'm thinking about it, Blair and I were about the same size too.
Did you know where Coach Brackman lived?
I had no idea where he lived. That would be so weird.
Did you break into Mr. Brackman's house?
No, I know I wrote on Mr. Brackman's car, but I would never go into someone else's house. I wrote on his car the one time, but I don't do things like that.
Miss Becker, did you kill Mackenzie Brackman?
Absolutely not. This was mock trial. It certainly wasn't life or death. I just could never have done this.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hunt, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Hello, Ms. Becker. I am Eleanor Hunt, and I'm an attorney with the prosecution.
Hi.
Mr. Brackman said you were undeserving of the Best Attorney Award, didn't he?
He did.
When he said this to you, you got upset.
I did, yeah.
You were outraged.
Yeah, I mean, I had worked so hard. I was so talented.
And in that moment, when he was badgering you in front of the class, you stormed out of the room.
I did, and I really thought I had a dry erase marker.
Right, with a marker in your hand.
Right.
And you saw his Porsche in the parking lot.
I know. I regret it so much. It's so embarrassing.
Is that a yes?
I did see it, and yeah.
And you scribbled Worst Attorney Award across the hood, didn't you?
I did. Again, it's so embarrassing.
And you're here today claiming that you thought it was a dry erase marker, right?
Yeah, because I did.
But the fact of the matter is that it wasn't.
I know, and I couldn't believe it when I couldn't get it off.
It was a permanent marker.
It was. It was horrible. I tried so many times to apologize.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You were out of control at that moment.
I was, but luckily my mom calmed me down.
Your mom calmed you down?
She did after I got home.
Was that before or after you told her what you had done?
Well, see, I was so embarrassed of what I had done that I didn't even tell my mom.
Why didn't you tell your mom?
Like I just told you, I was embarrassed. I mean, how could I do that to, I mean, it's hard to talk about now that the guy's dead, but I guess I'm just in shock that people are accusing me of something that I didn't do because I vandalized his car. I mean, it was to do with mock trial, a stupid mock trial case.
So your mom was calming you down after you told her that he kicked you off the team, right?
Right.
Because after he saw what you had done to his car, he told you you were done with mock trial.
Yeah, right.
And you texted Alex Cifuentes.
Of course not. I would never have asked her for help.
So you claim you never texted her?
I didn't.
Your Honor, permission for Ms. Becker to constructively look at Exhibit 14.
Granted.
Ms. Becker, do you have Exhibit 14 with you?
I do. Do you want me to look at it on my own?
Yes, please.
Okay. Sorry, can I just grab my exhibits?
Yes.
You may.
Thank you. Okay, sorry.
Do you have it in front of you now?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Becker, according to these messages that have been accepted by the court, you were planning to break into Mr. Brackman's house, weren't you?
I don't know where these texts came from, but it wasn't me writing them.
I know you say you did not write these texts, and I'm not asking you what anyone else is claiming, but these text messages indicate that you told Alex Cifuentes you were planning to break into Mr. Brackman's house, do they not?
They do, but it's all a lie. I never sent these.
So it's another lie.
It is.
Ms. Becker, I'd like to go back to the night you vandalized Mr. Brackman's car.
Okay.
Ousted from the A-team, you went home and told your mom what happened.
I'm sorry,
Right.
what was that?
Ousted from the A-team, you went home and told your mom what happened, right?
Well, you see, I didn't tell her the full truth. I was just so embarrassed of what I had done.
Right. You excluded from the truth that you vandalized his car.
I did. I was just so upset. I was crying and crying.
But what you did tell your mom is that you would get back at Mr. Brackman if it was the last thing you did. Isn't that right?
And it's been taken so out of context. I wanted to go to state and win and prove to him that I was talented, not that I could commit this horrific crime.
Miss Becker, I just need a yes. You said you would get back at Mr. Brackman if it was the last thing you did.
Right, yes, but it's out of context. I didn't mean it like that.
Miss Becker, you believe yourself capable of spinning a yarn for the jury, for a jury, right?
I know it's embarrassing that I would say that, but I am talented. Yes, I can do that.
Talented, capable of making things up on the spot, right?
Yeah, well, you have to in mock trial.
Exactly. You learned that skill in mock trial, didn't you?
Well, I don't know if I learned it there, but I mean, I was just meant to be in mock trial, I think. I was so good at it.
You're so good at making things up on the spot, right?
Pretty good at like thinking on my feet, yeah.
You lied to your own mother about your actions, right?
Well, I was just so upset about it.
You lied, yes?
Objection, Your Honor. This question has been asked and answered.
Any response?
Your Honor, the witness has actually not, in fact, provided a yes to this question. I'm simply asking for her to answer it without adding her own context to it.
All right, I will direct the witness to answer yes or no and allow the question.
I'm so
Would you like me to repeat the question?
That's okay. I did.
And now you are here today claiming to this jury that the only thing you did wrong was vandalize Mr. Brackman's car. Correct?
Because it's the truth.
It's the
Yeah.
truth.
That all I did was vandalize his car. I never went in his house. I could never have gone and stabbed him.
But you had made a plan. The night that you vandalized his car, you made a plan.
To do what?
That's what we want to know, Miss Becker.
I
The
made
night you vandalized his car, you told your mom you would get back at Brackman, and that's what you did.
Wait, could I answer your last question first? Is that okay?
Yes.
I made a plan to go to state and prove him wrong. To show him that you don't need a script, that I can deviate from the script and think on my feet. I never would have made a plan to do something as horrid as what happened to Mr. Brackman.
Right. You wanted to get back on the A team and go to state and prove yourself to Mr. Brackman. Right?
I did.
So you made a plan to do just that?
I don't know.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying that I wanted to show my true talent.
Okay. No further questions.
All right, thank you. Any redirect of this witness, Ms. Kozlowski?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms.
Go
Becker,
ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Becker, what was going through your mind when you told your mom that you would get back at Brackman if it was the last thing you did?
Well, like I just explained, I was upset after being kicked off the team, and I know that I made a mistake, and I vandalized his car, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But when I said that I would get back at Brackman, I meant that I would show how good I was at mock trial. I would show him that I was a good attorney and I was deserving of awards. Never that I would kill him.
Thank you, Ms. Becker. No further questions.
All right, Ms. Hunt, any follow-up based on that redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And with that, then, how would the defense like to proceed? Anything further?
Your Honor, the defense rests.
All right, thank you. Well, the court now has heard from the prosecution and from the defense. Both sides will be able to present a closing argument. I will allow the prosecution to go first. You may go ahead with your closing.
Thank you. Ousted, outraged, and out of control. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Miss Becker was used to getting away with everything until everything got away from her. On March 6, 2020, Avery's emotions got the best of her for the third and final time. The first time, she was ousted from her spot on the A team. The second, she was outraged by Mr. Brackman's constructive criticism and irrationally turned to vandalism. And the third time, everything got out of control. Avery had been kicked off the team for good and felt like she'd been stabbed in the back. Her response? To do the same to Mr. Brackman. We must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, meaning beyond a doubt which is speculative, imaginary, or vague, that Avery Becker committed second-degree burglary and felony murder. We don't need to prove that she intended to kill Mr. Brackman. We simply need to prove that her planned burglary got out of control, resulting in the death of her coach. Today, we have met this burden. As I walk us through the elements of these crimes, you will see that the evidence lies in the answer to 4 questions. First, did Avery enter Mr. Brackman's home? Yes. Detective Markowitz, an expert in cell tower data, testified that Avery's phone was placed and located her near Mr. Brackman's home during the date and time of the crime. and provided us with Ring doorbell footage, which showed Miss Becker, or an intruder of the same size, entering the home. Now, the defense attempts not only to discredit this through Van Owen's shoddy, speculative review of the evidence, not even a true investigation, but goes to provide an even less credible alibi, stating that Avery and Taylor spent the whole day looking for a lost phone. The lost phone making you miss an entire day of school does not raise enough doubt. Let's take a look at this unlikely story. Taylor provided it. The same Taylor who quit the mock trial team for Avery. The same Taylor who is Avery's best friend. Second, was Avery invited to Mr. Brackman's home? No. Ladies and gentlemen, when was the last time you greeted a welcomed guest with a knife drawn and self-defense? And third, did Avery plan to commit a crime? Not only did she tell her mom about her plan to get back at Mr. Brackman if it was the last thing she did, but she texted Alex saying, "I'm gonna wait until he's at work and then break in and trash it." Ask yourself, does that sound like a plan? And finally, was Mr. Brackman killed in the course of these events? Expert witness Kyle Kuzak walked us through every single link in the evidentiary chain, showing how Avery broke into Mr. Brackman's home. The two struggled through the kitchen, knocking over a plate, and in the midst of the chaos, Avery grabbed his knife and stabbed him back, leaving him to bleed to his death. Avery had a special talent to pull it all off. She had won awards as a witness in mock trials, speaking to you from the same stand in which she spoke today. But this is no longer mock trial. Actions have consequences. We have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Avery is guilty of felony murder, second-degree burglary. Find her guilty of such. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing from the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Open and shut. The prosecution saw this case, and do you know what they did? They came to the easiest conclusion they could. Open and shut. They found one lead from the second top suspect with enormous motivation to lie and followed it with tunnel vision. You've heard the prosecution's case, and all you learned is how much they didn't do. Avery Becker is being framed for murder because the prosecution's incompetent detectives failed to discover the truth. There are three key reasons why the prosecution failed to meet their burden. The first is that the whole theory of the prosecution's case is based on screenshots of alleged text messages between arch rivals Alex Cifuentes and Avery Becker, which Avery denies. Once Alex Cifuentes, suspect number 2, provided Detective Markowitz with mere screenshots of the alleged texts, it was all over. It was an open and shut case. Markowitz's first lead was her last lead, around which she built her entire theory of the case. And because she figured her work was done, and besides she didn't care much for Mackenzie Brackman, she willingly accepted this gift, screenshots of the text. This is the police officer with the cell phone technology and forensic data recovery certification from the American Academy of Law Enforcement. She couldn't be bothered to even pick up or examine Alex's phone, which coincidentally later Alex threw out. It is worth noting that by Alex's own admission, Avery lent her phone to Alex the night before the murder at the Fry Shack to play a game. Avery was so upset about being kicked off the team that she left suddenly, possibly leaving her phone behind. It is the last time she remembers having it. and our expert confirmed that the text are easily manipulated. The second reason why the prosecution failed to meet their burden is that they used inherently unreliable caller data records, or CDRs, to place Avery at the scene of the crime. Our expert clearly established that CDRs cannot determine the actual location of the phone because calls aren't necessarily picked up by the cell tower closest to the phone. And CDRs can't tell us where the phone's owner is. Avery didn't even have her phone on March 6th. It was lost. Plus, why didn't the prosecution obtain the CDRs for Alex or Blair Rollins' phones? The prosecution used the CDRs of Avery's phone to fit their version of the facts, even when there was evidence to the contrary and many other legitimate leads to follow. This brings us to the third reason. The prosecution didn't follow all the leads. Detective Markowitz stated that she initially believed that Mackenzie Brackman was murdered by one of his disgruntled ex-clients. Did Detective Markowitz ever pursue even one ex-client? No. You heard that a former client of Mr. Brackman's, Jonathan Rollins, was in prison because of Mr. Brackman. His son Blair, who was suspect number 3, was also absent from school on March 6th, but was never interviewed, his cell phone data never examined, and he disappeared from Colorado after graduation. Yet the prosecution wants you to believe Avery did this. She had disagreements with Mr. Brackman over mock trial. That's not exactly a motive for murder. The defense doesn't have the burden of proof here. It is entirely the prosecution's burden, which they failed to meet. There is more than just reasonable doubt here. There is a sea of doubt. This was not an open and shut case as the prosecution wants you to believe. And what matters now is that an innocent person is not held accountable for a crime she didn't commit. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask you, after considering all the evidence, and especially the lack of evidence, that you find our client, Avery Becker, innocent of all charges. Thank you.
Thank you. And did the prosecution have any rebuttal argument?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly.
Okay.
I ask you one final question. Are you really going to believe a theory riddled without evidence, constructed by biased witnesses, and held together by an alibi made by a best friend when a man is dead? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, that concludes the trial. And I have to say, everyone did an awesome, awesome job. I'd like to give the scoring panelists a few minutes here to get their scorecards completed and turned in. And once they've confirmed that they've sent those in, or submitted those, it's electronically this year, then we'll give some feedback to everybody. But I'm very impressed, especially at this late hour after a long day. And so scoring panelists, if you just want to give me a thumbs up or let me know if you've finished your score sheets. All right. Ms. Andrews and Mr. Mystico have finished. Mr. Boyle?
Yes, I have.
You finished it as well? All right. All right, then I will allow each of the scoring panelists to give some feedback, some comments, but again, I'm very impressed. I'll let them go first. Ms. Anderson, did you want to make any comments to the two teams here?
I will just say very quickly to you guys, because it's so late and you've had such a long day. These were outstanding teams. You guys were really well matched. You knew your material. Your presentation was enthralling. I've been scoring since 1 today. And so you kept me entertained the whole entire time. And that is tough to do after a long day. And as lawyers, that's what we have to do a lot of the time. So Really good work. The preparation just shone through. I'm so proud of you guys. Excellent.
Thank you. Mr. Nistico, did you want to go next?
That was great, everyone. I was especially impressed because I've never watched a mock trial over Zoom before, and I felt like it was just as polished as any mock trial I've seen in a courtroom. I mean, it was like really just went off without a hitch, and I feel like even with real attorneys doing Zoom hearings is not as smooth as that was. So, I mean, that's like just extra impressive. And I mean, I don't have enough good words to say. I mean, it was just all around. I want to highlight a few standout performances that I wrote. For the plaintiff opening statement, I thought there was a good discussion of the legal aspects of felony murder, which I think is a good part of the prosecution's case, because you don't have to actually prove intent to murder. You just have to prove that there was a felony and a murder or a killing occurred. On the Alex, the witness, I think it's Lauren, was the student. You did a great job handling the cross, like really great job thinking on your feet. And it tells me that the direct could probably be less scripted and more improvised because you just know the facts backward and forward. Melanie Mullins, that was an amazing cross. I mean, when you just quote all the bad things in the witness statement, there's just nothing they can do about it, and that's what you got to do. And Abby Amon, that was an impressive voir dire on the expert witness. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Boyle?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone did a good job doing direct and cross. And I remember being in law school and in trial practice and being told, by professors that people are good at one or the other. And my experience watching lawyers is that that's true. And, usually it's true in life. You know people that ask really pointed questions and you know people that ask open-ended questions. You really don't do both well. And I think you all did a really good job on, in both aspects. The witness that I thought was the best, not just because she was last, but Ms. Becker. I thought she was great. And then since part of her character was that she was good at acting, I thought that was even better because it was just kind of piled on. But I just really was impressed. And I'll say that my scores were high all around. So when I graded blue books in college, I had a hard time. Told me, you got to start out giving everybody a C or a B. Otherwise, all the grades are going to be up at the top, and you're not going to be able to separate them. And I totally didn't do that here because I couldn't, and so it made it harder as it went along because, you see something, you go, "Oh, that's really good," and it's like, well, I don't have a lot of room to go higher, and so, but you all did well. I'm proud of you. You should be proud of yourselves, and get some rest for tomorrow.
I agree. I echo all of those comments. I thought the teams were very well matched. As Ms. Van Dusen stated, there were a lot of outstanding performances. Very believable witnesses all around, very good and quick responses on cross. You can tell you guys know your materials. And I'm just very impressed. So I'd say congratulations to both teams. It was an excellent round. And I would expect the scores to be pretty high. So good job, everyone. Get some rest, and you'll see some of us tomorrow. I don't know which teams we'll draw for tomorrow, but thank you all. And that will conclude this. I believe with the submission of those score sheets, we don't have to recheck into any Zoom rooms. So the scoring panelists, I think we're all free to go for the evening. And for the teams, good luck tomorrow.
Good job, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
You.